Hi, welcome to Creative Mornings.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. My name's Jeremy. I'm the host of Creative Mornings Charlottesville. Thank you all for coming, especially a lot of folks who haven't been here before. If you haven't heard of Creative Mornings, it is an international breakfast speaker series where Creative Mornings HQ shares a theme for each month, and then 238 chapters around the world all find a local speaker in their community to share their perspective. And we have had a chapter in Charlottesville for, I think, 5 years. I'm looking at Maureen now. Maybe? 5 years? I think like 5 years. And at the time, we were the smallest city to get their own chapter, which was exciting. And like I said, every month we speak on a theme, and this month's theme is reflection. And I want to thank the local partners that help support this event and help pay for the pastries and the coffee that you're enjoying. So UVA Arts, New City Arts, and the Fralin Museum of Art. So I'd like to welcome up Tori from New City Arts.
You come on stage.
You can also stand.
Hi everybody, I'm Tori. We have an event tomorrow as part of our exhibition, our fellowship exhibition, currently open for the last week, I think, next week. Ebony Bug's going to be hosting a writing circle tomorrow from 11 to 12:30. If you're interested, sign up online at newcityarts.org. Or ask me, or Maureen, or Corey for more information.
Awesome, thank you. And then there's some events coming up at the Fralin Museum of Art. Lisa, do you want to speak to them, or you want? I can speak to them. Yeah. So there's free creative writing workshops. Final Fridays is this upcoming Friday? Week from today. Foraging Awe in October, and a sparkling wine tasting in November. And I know the museum, I think, a lot of the galleries were closed in August while things were changing over, but there are a lot of great new shows on view. And if you have any questions, Lisa can let you know. Anything else? Okay. Sweet. Also, thank you to our hosts, WTJU.
Thanks for coming out today. Really glad to host everybody this morning. If you want to get involved in some way in radio or podcast, please let me know. If you just want to see our studios upstairs after the event today, I'd be glad to show you around.
For folks who've been in town for a while, this used to be the Sneak Reviews video rental store, and I like the weird remnants that still exist upstairs on the floors.
The floor upstairs kept the original video store stencils on the floor. So
Nice.
Yeah, we got our BBC Mystery section next to Prod Studio.
Also, thank you to Ian and Corbin for videography and photography, respectively. And I also, thank you to the team that helps me put this together every month, Emma and Corey and Maureen. Thank you all very much. Finally, bring a friend. The way most people find out about Creative Mornings is a friend of theirs is speaking, and then the other way people find out is they attend and they're like, oh, that was sweet, and then they tell a friend. So if you have a good time, A, come back, and B, let a friend know and bring them with you. I was with that. And finally, I want to welcome PK.
All right, I can
Turn off your
my giant face. Now it's me. All right. Hello. Thank you for coming to my babble, I guess. So let's do an introduction about me in case people don't know who I am. It feels odd because I perceive myself as a known quantity in town, but it's patently false. So hi, I own a gelato shop called Splendora, as we used to be out in the downtown mall, but we are currently at the shops at Stonefield. I have been making gelato for 17 years, and I've owned my store for, I know, right? It's wildly unmillennial. But I have owned my store for 14 years. Where I am now is a mystery to me still because I have a background in science. I graduated from UVA in 2005 with a biology degree in molecular genomics. I cringe every time I do that because I still can't fully explain what I had hoped to do. Sorry, we've got an immunologist in the room, and he's pretty stoked that I talked about lab work just then. The idea in 2005 had been to take a couple years, work, and go get a job in a lab for the rest of my life. And that obviously is not what happened, because now I'm here talking to you guys about being creative. In terms of this talk, where did Jeremy go? Jeremy was kind enough to let me choose what I could speak on, and reflection just really spoke to me. And yeah, the issue though is, when I sat down to start putting together this talk, everything skewed towards hateful. To speak of what it is to make my own food as a visible other in a town that is pretty much steeped in Francophilia just turned into this bitter rant about food appropriation. To speak on the rebellion of being a creative as an immigrant with immigrant parents, and the cultural norms in the Philippines of your child being an extension of you and a reflection of where you are in a community, turned into therapy, and y'all aren't getting money from me for that. So while I cast around for a topic to actually muse on reflection, everything just kind of came back sooted with rage fire, and I really wasn't sure what to do. So I leaned into it. If my creative license only offered me access to Spite Highway, that is what I made the talk about. Hi, I'm PK. I'm a hateful bridge troll, but I'm making it work. A few years ago, my store, Splendora's, was nominated for a category in Best of Seville that was not interpreted clearly, is the kind thing that I like to think. My shop, which for better or worse is an expression of myself, was deemed fit to have the town vote on whether or not it was best of business that could only exist in Charlottesville. When I tell you that I reacted with the rage of 1,000 suns in the middle of a supernova, that is an understatement. Because to me, how dare anyone think that my talent wouldn't cut it anywhere else? How dare anyone, let alone enough someone's to qualify Splendora as a nominee, believe my work only came of this place and not that I put into this place? I was livid for 2 years. They took away the category. No one actually voted on it. Probably the only reason you guys know about it is because I'm telling you right now. And I still am a little angry about it, just if you can't tell. Because I thought it was no small secret that I actually hate feeling stuck in this town. I know that I said I've been making gelato for 17 years. I've owned my business for 14. And in none of those years has this place felt like home. For me, this town is too polite. There's a way that well-intentioned groups address the symptoms of deep harms and then congratulate themselves on a job done without actually changing the underlying inequities. I see a lot of performative saviorism, and I think it might be just because I am a visible other. I've always felt kind of outside of things. I hate the way homogeneity seeps into every corner. Like, have you ever caught yourself at events and it's always the same sorts of people or the actual same people over and over again? My friend had joked at an art function that we needed to break up some couples so we could get new volunteers. So it's like, let's destroy some romance so new people can come to these events. And there was a kernel of truth in that, because it was always just the artist and their partner, or their partner being the volunteer, pretty unwillingly. Established in-groups, and I'm trying to find kindness while I'm doing this talk, maybe subconsciously, established in-groups find themselves ingrained without thought to diversity other than passing lip service. I find this town very surface. The veneers are super shiny, but it's happily complacent about not changing anything. So here I am, creative embroiled in conformity, to me a seeming cheerful sameness. How do I keep trying to make a statement of myself when what I see around me is a reflection of the parts of myself that I hate? because my dislike of this place comes from the very visceral knowledge that I fit in. I see all the bits of myself that I fear. Mediocrity, thoughtlessness, and pride, and I see them celebrated in a way that I'm uncomfortable with. So here, let's take a little pause just to set some parameters. I do have a background in science, and experiments always need parameters. I make food. I express my inner landscape as flavors. I process the world as textures and front palate and mid palate and finish and bitter, sour, sharp, saline, sweet. I am always, constantly, and if you've ever had dinner with me, wondering, will it gelato? Even if the dish in front of me is a duck confit, I'll try to tease out parts and figure out a way that I can turn that into a dessert. My brain does it automatically. I like that about me. It's a little odd. But what I create with is a resource. Food is a resource, and it can be controlled to control others. Resources can be commodified, and resources are always, always, always politicized. We're literally watching it right now. When Haitians are accused of eating cats, that is a way where what they are ingesting creates them as a subhuman category. And that's just the basic thing of food. In colonial powers always used to control the production, the means of production, and by divorcing indigenous populations with their foodways, it erased them. And that was what made control easier. So if you're thinking to yourself, PK, it's snacks, it's not that deep, to me it is, because it historically always has been. So on to spite. To be spiteful is to be malicious. But I operate under the belief that spite is an action, while rooted in malice, reaches towards hope and trusts itself to be able to make a difference. It's really easy to get stuck in the malice part. It's really easy to see what you dislike and the ways that it's a reflection of the parts of yourself you dislike, and let that stop being an inspiration to change. The topic of today is meant to be reflection. I haven't done the best job of introducing it. It's with harshness that we're meant to look into mirrors. Mirrors are ascribed with the aloofness of exactitude. What you see is what you get. As artists and creatives, we purport to temper that reality with the lens of our perspectives. We manipulate and soften. We magnify and sharpen. We diminish and erase. We hold in ourselves the power to face a reflection and bend the narrative towards an inner world or the shaping of an outer society. So, if what I catch around me are glimpses of the parts of myself that I hate, surely there's room to catch the realities of what I love. And what I love is not being of this place, but growing here anyway, among people not like me, to infuse my narrative with the perspectives of others, forging their own histories alongside mine. At the end of the day, mirrors only show what you point them at. Your reflection and what you are reflecting depends on source. So instead of commodifying ingredients to the glory of my shop, instead of flattening a flavor to achieve homogeneity, I like to think that I use food that I make to honor existing stories. I like to celebrate niche holidays. It's my favorite. It was just Mid-Autumn Festival, so my shop has black sesame and a Taiwanese oolong with plum, and I made fish sauce caramel. And those are all flavors that, to me, tell someone you belong here. And maybe it'll make people a little less shy to celebrate their holidays. I had an interesting conversation 2 Ramadans ago with someone who said that her family never felt open about telling folks that it was their holy month or inviting others to their spaces. So she helped me craft. Every week I did a flavor based on a Muslim majority country, and she and other community members helped me do that. So the point is to recognize the humanity in someone else and try to tease out theirs in a more visible way. It's that pivot of a mirror to make people feel less alone and to catch them in the reflection that you're creating. I like to think the small act of saying, hello, yes, happy Diwali, which by the way, Diwali is on Halloween, y'all. It's a fun holiday. I love that one. The saffron rose cardamom is for you. Happy Diwali. Yes, it's right there next to the cookies and cream and vanilla, 2 over from the Tendai. Is the same thing as saying, you don't just belong here, you make this place better. And by making this place better, you make me better. And all of that requires visibility. It's a visibility that is, to be frank, terrifying when you're an other. For every person relieved that I know about microalcohols or surprised that the ube tastes like ube and not beets, there are at least 2 blank stares and 1 ew gross. Darkness like this obscures the direction of where I hope to find my humanity in others. It smears the reflection. So I continue to create in spite. I anchor back into a complacent self whose reflection has become loathsome to me, and reach forward in hope that a mirror can show change. And somewhat horrifyingly, I find that I have to trust myself and my community to make that hope possible. And that is also terrifying. It's less of a flatness of reality and more a fullness of encompassing all. So I think that's the solution, really. The problem with mirrors is that they're flat. You can only point them in one direction. So I say screw a mirror, screw a belief that a reflection is a singular, harsh reality. Be a disco ball. Create work that catches any light and scattershots the brightness wherever it can land. Own even the terrible bits, because they spin out into a world that is more malleable than we think it is if we don't do things alone. Raise your work, the wondrous and woeful, the awe-inspiring and awful. You need the dullness to have the dazzle, but a disco ball without a beam isn't much of anything. Create, even if your impetus is malice, because there's no boogie in the darkness. All right, thank you.
But any questions? Okay.
All of my friends are in the front row, and it's making me more nervous than I thought it was going to be. But, actually, I do have one thing to say that's not to do with the topic, but is to do with Creative Mornings, and that is that it's anybody. So, if you have a friend who is interested in maybe sharing their perspectives, but they don't feel like what they do is creative, I physically cringe when people call me an artist. I think I'm a craftsperson. It's a small distinction, but to me, what I make while containing a perspective and a narrative, it doesn't super make the world better. The connections I forge make the world better, but the food I make is the food I make. So if you have a friend who's just kind of goofing off, maybe they can come and have a talk here, because everyone's voices are kind of important. Yeah. I still don't know why Jeremy asked me, honestly, but it's okay.
My biggest thing with Creative Mornings as well, there's the Creative Mornings manifesto about how everyone is creative, and I think that's true, but it's still, a lot of the language is creatives in the community, it's way less pithy, but I think it's just people in the community doing interesting things or with interesting perspectives, and creativity is going to be thread through that in some capacity. My day job is just making spreadsheets. I have no creative practice. I have a bachelor's degree in biology. And so also somebody was I don't know why I'm hosting this. But the nice thing about the host is my job is just to gently urge people with things to say, to talk, and then stand 10 feet away from the stage. So, but I can be here, PK, and I think hopefully people after hearing talk feel looks like a great person to speak here. And so, yeah, always interested in more people who want to speak, or just bring them to listen. That's great too.
Yeah. Yes. Hey, good morning, everyone. I also love to celebrate and cook for niche holidays, so
I know you do.
very much aligned there. But I'm wondering if, as a public-facing, as the proprietor of a public-facing business, have you seen change, whether positive or hopefully not negative, in terms of reaching those communities that would also like be appreciative of the niche, well, quote unquote niche. Yeah. How has that played out over the years?
So it's not something that I engaged with downtown, more or less because it was too big. It was the pressure to make rent. So when I was downtown, I was open 7 days a week, offered 32 to 36 flavors, 17 of which rotated out weekly, and I had a staff of between 14 to 20. So making flavors that specifically addressed community connection was farther down the list than I ever would do, ever. But being in a smaller spot, seeing how my market has changed has been wildly intriguing. Having more Muslim customers, like needing to know what the answers are to if I do things halal, like showing what the nut paste is when people have their holiest holidays, when they pay a little more attention. A lot of more South Asian persons. So in terms of the flavors that I make, it feels like it's word of mouth of people will see something that is associated with their culture and just tell other people. And then I look like a kind of a jerk because I'm like, oh, that was for a holiday. Sorry, we don't always have that. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I don't know if it's been necessarily an external change, but more of an uncovering rather than a shift. Does that make sense? Yeah. Just downtown, the way downtown is a space for events that aren't necessarily centered around cultural touchstones, whereas being like in closer proximity to where persons of different cultures might live, then like this is like their nearest celebratory area, possibly. I'm not sure. I don't actually know the demographics. It is a perception that I have. I could be talking out of my ass. Yes?
Okay, I found what you had to say really powerful, and I found myself relating a lot to what you had to say, even though I'm a white guy and we have very different backgrounds. I too am one of the reasons Sibo Weekly dropped a category from the best of thing. But I didn't find you speaking from a place of spite. I found your voice to be very important in a way even more than hopeful, like perhaps could lead to change. So I just wanted to hope for you that you can find an outlet to be projected even greater than this room.
Thanks, Ian. I appreciate that. Because I still remember the shoot that you did, because you did a great shot of a Bambino cone dripping. It's my favorite mental image ever. It's actually interesting you point that out, because one of my friends who's here was telling a story about how when I first met her, I was like, nah, I'm good. And it was only to do with like not taking time to find ourselves in each other, because at the end of the day, we are deeply similar in a very creepy way. And she's like a basic ass white lady. Just joking. I'm joking. Carrie, I'm joking. No. Anyway, yeah, it's one of those things where food is so often relegated to as I said, a resource, but not only a resource. It is easy to think of food as clout. It's easy to apply past colonial mores into the very, very innocuous seeming ways of saying like, oh, but I like Thai food, so now I get to open a Thai restaurant just because I feel like it, without recognizing that there are other stories that go along with having foodways. Yeah. I think that sort of behavior stops you from being able to project yourself into other. And reflection was one of the topics I kind of wanted to talk about, because there's a lot of ways that I witness persons being glad of their homogeneity, and I don't know that that is welcome in the world that I would like to live in. So, yeah, Jenny. Oh, hello. I'm sorry. Jenny.
To express my deep gratitude. I spent most of lockdown alone, and your deliveries of the samples were like the highlight of my lockdown.
Yeah, you used to put out plants on your patio.
You made some gelato basil plant, I
Yeah.
remember. So my question, and you may not want to answer it, is I arrived in Charlottesville in 2006. I also relate to much of what you shared about, and also myself have felt like I got beached here, and so many people you meet here moved here intentionally, and they're like, "What got you Charlottesville?" And I never want to tell the story, you know. So I also at times feel stuck here, but it's a huge privilege to be also stuck in a place like this at times. So if you wanted to just share a little bit more about why you feel that way, like is it because of your business or family connections? And that's fine if you don't want to share, but because I wouldn't want to. But also, but tangentially, if you would rather answer, like if you could live somewhere else, where would that be?
If the pandemic hadn't happened, I would not be up here talking to you because I would be gone. The hope had been before the pandemic to pull up stakes entirely. My fear of mediocrity comes very much from being a failed gifted kid. I've got all the anxiety. Yeah, y'all know. So I have this really deep-seated fear that I have been here so long that I'm no longer pushing or shaping myself. Yeah. And you're an artist also. You talked at the last Creative Morning. So having inspiration when you are in a place where inspiration is work is slightly difficult. So like I had hoped to leave. Financially, it just couldn't happen after the pandemic. In a perfect world, I would have opened a new shop in Richmond with my friend Arlie. I was one of her like secret hopes that she told me in the middle of the pandemic when we were both like nuts. Now we have to pivot our lives. So that in a perfect world, that is probably what I would be doing. But the world is only as perfect as we make it, and perfect's kind of boring. So you just gotta take the crappy parts and let that inform you as well, I guess. Do you do lino cuts or? Yeah, so understanding that negative is also part of your creation. Yeah. Yeah, so that's like the way that I like to think of the food that I make is even though I did temper my spite, there's a lot of cursing I could have put in here. I did temper my spite somewhat. There are times where it feels like when I highlight that there are visible other groups in this town and that they belong right alongside all of the popular Italian flavors, to me that feels like a place of malice sometimes, even though it is benefiting another. It's also a way to say like, screw you, I'm gonna make this flavor anyway. I don't care if you think it's gross. Yeah. Oh, hello.
Hi, I'm Nancy. Thank you so much for your talk. I was kind of startled by your frankness and really like kind of sunk into it. Yeah.
Maybe the autism worked for you.
And also it touched my heart because I've been here for 10 years and I talked to a lot of people who've been here for a while and still waiting for that sense of like, oh, I belong here. And I'm just like a regular white lady, but But I find that my husband and I find home in like go to the farmer's market to the deep fruit milling guys and hang out there, and then it's like, you know, there are these moments, but it's not but so many times I keep thinking one of these days I'm going to go to an event here and I'm going to think, yeah, I belong here. It's like I always feel like I'm visiting.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you just presencing that, and you know, sort of probably a lot of people shouldn't feel it.
Yeah, I don't think you're able to process things until you verbalize them, and once you verbalize, hello, come back. There it is. Once you verbalize a feeling of being unmoored, you kind of find that there's other people like that too. I am diagnosed manic depressive. I'm not sure if it's correct necessarily because there's a lot going on up in here. But one of the things that I always think about is being a manic depressive feels like being a buoy in open water, and you just try to set out as many anchors as you can, and sometimes those connections snap, but sometimes they're the only thing that holds you in place. So that work is work, but there's never going to be a time where you're still. Like, you're always going to be that way. So I don't know. Waves are really interesting because waves always describe a circle. A wave is energy moving through water. So a single water molecule actually doesn't go anywhere. It just goes up and down. That's what I think about sometimes. Of like, unless something is going to be there to physically displace you, you're going to always be up and down. So either splash around or be happy going, like bobbing along. Do you know what I mean? Yes, Hadley?
I think everyone is resonating with that sense that you're giving voice to, feeling like maybe you're passing through. And it's something that I hear a lot at work too, because I do hear and I talk to people one-on-one for a living. And it seems to me that feeling like you belong somewhere is just knowing that there's a repeatable sense of peace and being seen. And I think what you just said about leading with spite and then finding that in the spite is actually yearning for something better. Like, you can't be angry if everything's great. Like, you would have to be angry because everything is not great and you want it to be better. Yeah, so this has been a lovely exercise in seeing God in each of the people here and witnessing each other.
Oh, Hadley.
I mean, like, anytime I see you, I want to make the entire thing into a toast for PK.
And it's gross and it's weird, dude.
It's gross. It's a story. So I'll stop now. But, yeah, just one more saying thank you. And, like, thank you for helping me find the peace in my own spite.
Yeah. Hadley has an interesting story also because when he, before he had his kids, he used to bop into my kitchen. It was like, in downtown, the swingy door would slam open and he'd be like, Kyle told me I was being a pill and I'm here to talk. It was kind of the best. Because like the beautiful thing about food also is that while it has it can be used as a tool, like weaponized against others, it's still snacks.
Yeah.
So like people could always come into my kitchen and they can sit and tell me their problems and I'll feed them out of the machine. It's kind of the best thing ever. It's the kind of the best thing ever for me too, because it distracts me from all of my stress in life to hear about other people's problems and just to be like, the pistachio came out of the machine.
We found a lot of peace, and I think leading with my grumpiness has brought me more joy and home than anything else ever has.
Yeah, see? Yeah. And grumpiness is 2 steps below spite. So here we are. Yes.
I recently had a heavy exchange regarding my arrival in Charlottesville, which is 3 years ago, and from New York, and discovering the differences between Southern culture and Bulgarian culture. And I attended this. This was not about food so much as it was about religion, and I was I found that I was told that my response to people's overly, well, I don't know how to say this, maybe anybody can help me. There is an intense focus on Christianity here.
Yes.
And I'm always like, that's not the only thing.
Yeah.
Hello. And a friend of mine told me that I was making caustic comments. And I was. But I wasn't aware that I was. And so I appreciated that she told me that. She's an old friend. And it made me more aware that I was actually hurting her feelings and other people's feelings. And she said she didn't realize she was hurting mine. So I'm still pondering it. And there's very much about cultural differences, number one, and assumptions, number two, and I guess friendship, number three.
Yeah, well, there's a philosopher whose name escapes me, and there was something that he wrote that the gist of it is, at the same time that I am the subject of my own narrative, I'm the object of someone else's. You're continuously living that dichotomy, if you want to call it that. And I would push back against that only to say that, is it necessary to conceive of that as a dichotomy? So I think maybe that's the stress that you are feeling, is forgetting that you are always the object of another's perception, and with that perception comes a separate narrative that you were literally never going to be part of. So yeah, I can get that. It's also hard to come. I love being Southern. I wasn't born here. I was born in the Philippines. We lived in New York for a minute. My dad decided that he didn't want to raise daughters in New York, mostly because I was like loud and aggressive. So, right? We lived in Queens. I'd be even louder than I am now, right? It's kind of cool. Anyway, so we moved to the South, and there was a real shrinking in when we moved down here to Virginia Beach. So I can understand where that cultural more is very much. It's a niceness, which is different than kindness. So I can see where it would be hard to reconcile those without like a lot of deep conversations that you don't either have time for or want to have.
I want to have them.
Yeah, I know. I had to cut out parts of this because it turned into a treatise against capitalism, but it's it's capitalism's fault that you don't have time to have deep conversations. Yes.
When you say it's just snacks, specifically what you do is dessert, and it's like a very celebratory thing for a lot of people, and there's a lot of children and a lot of joy in what they go to you for. How exhausting is it to exist in a place where you are feeling the way that you have just so eloquently explained, but also being the face of that celebration and that treat, like that reward for so many, especially impressionable people?
I'm lucky in many ways that while my store is a touchstone for celebration, it's also a touchstone for sadness. I'm grateful for that. Last month, someone literally got off of the highway from their grandfather's funeral and came to my shop because they had checked the flavor list before they left New York. So at a Chinese funeral, you're meant to spend money immediately. They give you a coin when you leave a Chinese funeral. I'm fuzzy on what the actual thing is, but she popped that coin into my tip jar. So while it is academically easy to understand that it's gelato, there's colors and sweets and it's so much sugar. While it's academically easy to understand that it is someone's moment of joy, that part is like very easy to process because it's like, duh. Like, of course. You find the solace in knowing that it's also a touchstone for and literally any other emotion. You know, like someone gets angry about something and they are so frustrated that all they can do is shove sugar in their face and they choose my shop. Someone is grieving and sorry, I might start crying because it was really sweet. They ordered a Bambino of, it was her dead husband's favorite flavor, and they just let it melt on the counter. And they're like, we're not being rude. We're not being rude. It's just that, like, this is the first anniversary of his death. So knowing the fullness of that is its own solace. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
This is like dangerously close to a comment, not a question, which makes me want to punch myself just saying that. So I'll try to frame it into a question as I go. But
we just make a comment?
well, it's kind of, so you like to celebrate the niche holidays, but you've also, this kind of approaches what you were just saying, like create niche holidays through your flavors, whether it's, I don't know, people that like look forward to beer lotto, or like when there's the strawberry pink peppercorn, or even like kind of similar to what Jenny was saying about COVID, like I know the Lefroy Earl Grey maple lemon is like tied to a specific memory for you, but then also as a flavor that was available during like very early COVID that like we got delivered. And now like when it is back very sporadically, it's like good, like it's a memory of that time, and it has a memory for you, and it's also like carried on new memories and created new patterns. And
yeah, it's seasons. It's seasons that touch, you know? Like, what is it? When you throw a pebble in a pond and it ripples out, just keep fucking throwing pebbles. It's just like all those ripples touch until reflections are more than a singular, I think. So be a disco ball or a pond, a disrupted pond. No, that's real. Like the seasonal things are very real. I got a dude in trouble with his wife because I remade strawberry pink peppercorn out of season and he didn't catch it. So, yeah. Poor Hal. Yeah, I can understand that. It's another point of connection. Yeah, I wouldn't call them holidays.
no, but for the right person. You know,
You're a Madonna song. You just celebrate all the time. Yeah, it's seasonality. People, I didn't make that much pawpaw this year. The number of people that were hoping for it was overwhelming, and that's always slightly heartrending when you have set up people and then it's just disappointment because I'm still working with nature. Yeah, but yeah. Oh, I do the non-Scotch version. I like the Scotch version too. Okay, just checking. Yeah, Nathan.
Well, first we can get that treatise against capitalism another time. That'd be fine. The other
Any day.
Any day. Well, I want to thank you for coming here, and also thank you for echoing Jenny the pandemic deliveries. And I think I've said it to you privately before, but also thank you for just being open on Unite the Right that day, back in 2017. Because I came into the shop and it was just like, oh yeah, here we are.
Attempting normalcy. Yeah. That was my friend's birthday. I dressed up as a penguin and I brought her a tiny mint julep in a jar. Yep. So depending on what time of day you came into my store, I might have been tanked on mason jar mint juleps. Yeah.
No, it was, speaking of multiple kinds of touchstones that come from the shop. And that directly reminds me, like leading up to Unite the Right, part of why we ended up with that, it really, when it's got right back to how it was, is so much what you were talking about with the primacy of politeness and veneers and seeming rather than being. And
It's a struggle.
yeah, and it's a strange thing to try and navigate invisible positions.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
if you have anything else to add on that.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is that Dolly Parton said it best when she said, No, I care very deeply about what people think about me when they care about me. I care when they care. If you're going to come to me and just come to me with nonsense and expect me to be one thing, I don't care what you think, because what you think isn't who I am. She said it in some interview. I want to say with Barbara Walters, but I'm not sure. A lot of Dolly Parton stuff comes on Instagram from me because the algorithm loves me. But yeah, it's just a matter of being as visible and as outspoken as I am is not the easiest thing in the world, but there is also a matter of I don't care. Unless you're coming to me with care, I don't care. So, yeah. Does anyone else have questions? Okay. Can you stuff it?
Say it afterwards, but I want to say it now because I really appreciate, like, you know, we talked about nervousness and like you've also helped me to a lot talking about public speaking, and I was never nervous for you because you've built spaces like this wherever you go. Like, I don't have to ask a question because you make it into a conversation. You're always interested in having that dialogue and making that connection. And I think that that's something that I find so significant. You know, I hear people talking about struggling to find community here, and I found so much community through you, you know, just as a random person who showed up in your shop and like liked the e-forage flavors that I saw on Instagram. You know, like I feel like you are a person who just really resonates a lot of things that people feel in town and are afraid to say. And I'm really grateful that you do so despite it being painful, you know, like that pain led you to picking spite as the subject you wanted to talk about. And like, I really appreciate that optimism that comes along with it, that idealism.
Isn't it wild? I'm like superficially very gothy, and yet here we are. And you're like, but I want things to be better, and everyone else is like, they're already fine as is, you know? Like, it's...
I like how many people that I don't know talked about the discomfort of unbelonging. Yeah, it's scary to think that there's not enough people talking about it out loud. I feel like maybe it could change if we did. But like, am I wrong? I could be. I'm again it's entirely a possibility I've been talking out of my ass this whole time. That's always a possibility. Yeah, it's interesting how many people echo that sentiment and only do it privately. It's a little scary doing it publicly, not gonna lie. But here I am, I did it. Fail.